afternoon from the garden and welcome to today's video in which I want to take you on a little harvest tour of our quarter-acre permaculture garden. It's mid-October, it's a beautiful sunny, very warm day, warmer than it's been the last 2-3 weeks I'd say. However, for tonight the first frost is being forecast, so that means that we'll have to bring the last of the summer produce of the tender veggies, such as tomatoes and eggplant inside. We'll be taking the last of our winter squash, we'll be bringing those inside too. But I'll also be harvesting some of the fall produce that is just starting to come into its own, such as kale. And I'll be harvesting fruit from the food forest part of the garden. A little personal side note, if you're a subscriber, then you probably know that it's been quite a long time since our last video. I think the last time we filmed was at the beginning of May, and in that video I said that I was going to take a break from social media and from YouTube. Initially I thought that the break would be about a month, but once I slowed down I realized just how exhausted I was and that a much longer break was needed. I am back to YouTube right now, but I'll still be staying away from Instagram. I don't know yet how I'll be going forward, but I wanted to take a moment and to thank all of you who have reached out and were asking how I was doing. I might film a little more personal update on this in the future. However, today I want to share the full abundance of the garden with you. And I thought I would take a little different approach in this video than in my past harvest videos. And I want to show you how I'm harvesting more intentionally for certain meals. And I have 2 meals in mind, and one will be sort of a goodbye kiss to summer, if you will. I will be harvesting for that first. Then I want to pick the winter squash, bring the winter squash inside, and then I also want to harvest produce for a more autumnal dish. So let's get started with tomatoes. We grow tomatoes in 2 ways. We grow different varieties of cherry tomatoes in the greenhouse, and then we grow resistant varieties, potato blight resistant varieties outside, because normally tomatoes don't do really well for us outside because our climate is quite rainy. However, this year has been, I think, the worst year for tomatoes in recent memory. We had to pull out our greenhouse tomatoes a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago I think. And normally we would let them be and they would keep producing till beginning of November if we would not have any hard frost. And actually we still have a few tomato plants outside, and I wanted to share with you which of the varieties that we have grown this year have done the best and have shown the biggest resistance. We have done a trial of resistant tomato varieties 2 years ago, and we filmed a video about that, which I will link below. And in that year, the 2 varieties that have done the best for us were Mountain Magic and Primabella. And even though we had tried some new varieties this year, Crocini and another one that we had high hopes for, those were they succumbed to blight much earlier than those 2, especially Primabella. I think maybe you can look a bit. You can see that it even has healthy leaves. I've been removing the blighted leaves, but this is the healthiest plant in the bed. However, there is one more variety that will be joining the Hall of Fame, and that is Galahad. This is we have harvested quite a few. You can see that those tomatoes are much larger. The taste is good, and compared to other large fruited varieties that we have grown 2 years ago, this one seems to be much less prone to cracking. But this one is not quite ripe. It will have to ripen inside. I will harvest the lot, and we will eat the ripe ones today, and then the rest hopefully will continue to ripen on the windowsill. So this is the last of the tomatoes, but here's another here are two other veggies that will not survive frost, and that's this beautiful chili pepper, which is called Westlandse Langerode. It's been our favorite for maybe 10 years or more. We have tried other varieties, but this one is always the most reliable, most productive one. It has a nice amount of heat. One pepper is usually enough to season a pot of chili or a pot of curry. And there are quite a few ripe ones, which we will not be, of course, we will not use these up quickly. But what I will do is put them on a string and let them dry, and that way we can keep them for the, we can use them up throughout the winter. There's another tender veg in this bed, and that's eggplant. Eggplant is not the easiest thing for us to grow because it requires more heat than our summers will usually provide. This variety was supposed to be Slim Jim, but I'm actually not quite sure when I'm looking at the fruit whether it was correct. We have, you know, there are some fruits, but they just start ripening towards the end of the season in our climate. I don't think this is the best variety for us. There are some that have a that will fruit in shorter amount of time, that require fewer days from flowering till the fruits are ripe, and those might be better. I have grown some early black egg before, and I think that one has done better. So this is probably not a variety that I'll be returning to. However, it's nice to have a few of these beautiful fruits to end the summer season. I have just realized that I have not said what kind of dish I want to make. So the sort of summary dish will be pasta with pesto, for which I'll be harvesting some basil from the greenhouse. Pesto is it's probably the favorite thing of my son to eat, so he'll be very happy. But I want to add to it some of the tomatoes, some beans, green beans, and I want to roast the eggplant with some thyme and chilies. So that's the plan. I'm going to harvest some of the beans. There are some that will be a little too tough to be enjoyable, but if I stick to the green ones near the top, those will still be good. And actually, if I have enough, I might even add some to my fall dish. Oh, by the way, this variety is called Faraday, and it, as you can probably see, it's been very productive, and it's not stringy, so that's a very good thing in green beans, I find. So that's enough of the beans. I don't think many of them will still be enjoyable because it's really at the end of their season. Now let's head over to the greenhouse to harvest some pesto. Harvest some pesto, basil.
And now there's something in the air and a sparkly shimmer on our skin.
So that's a whole lot of basil. I think we can make a good last batch of pesto and make my son very happy. But like I said, we'll also be bringing the winter squash home. We have already harvested, I think, about 2/3 of the winter squash, and those are curing at home. But we are also curing some here in the greenhouse. By the way, curing means giving them a short period of warmer temperatures so that the skin toughens up, and that will help, that means that they will keep better for a longer time. And also it benefits the taste. They develop a sweeter taste when you cure them. So here is the batch that we harvested, I think a week ago, and that's been curing here. So we'll be bringing that home, but there are also a few still in our patch. So let me show you over there. This year, I think our pumpkin patch has been the biggest ever. I have talked in previous videos about how we usually cover a part of the garden that we want to develop later. We cover it with cardboard to kill perennial weeds, and then we grow winter squash through holes in the cardboard. And because we have had such a big area covered this year, we have planted a lot of different varieties, and I think we will have our biggest harvest yet. I am planning to do a review, as we usually do, of the different varieties, but for now I'm happy to report that this year we have finally had some success with the Hubbards, like this one. We have also grown a few of our favorite butternuts. This one is called Barbara, and it's a big one. And then there are the smaller, more practical, but very sweet and delicious Anver, fruits of the Anver variety. We have some smaller butternuts too. Those are like the what I call one meal fruits. So I will not be leaving those in the greenhouse. We will bring them inside and cure them on the windowsill. So for my second dish that I will be making tomorrow, and which will be more autumnal, I want to make a very hearty soup filled with lots of different vegetables, because that to me is just a quintessential autumnal meal. But I think just to make this, not to make this video too long, I will just show you quickly the things that I'm picking, and I will be talking about the autumnal produce and the specific varieties that we're growing in a future video in November, because those will still be around, unlike the tomatoes. So this is Romanesco. You can see it's just starting to bolt, but that does not make it unsuitable for soup. Then we need some carrots. Oh, I have sown carrots a couple of times, so there are some. Let's see. We will eat the smaller ones, we will eat fresh, and then I will use some larger ones for soup. Then for the base of a soup, I like to use a leek. Fennel, also nice in the base of a soup. And lastly, I want to pick a bunch of kale from my kale trial batch. I have talked about this in the April or May video that I was going to do this. We have several varieties and they are so beautiful together. I feel like this could be an ornamental planting. So that's our second dinner taken care of. I'll just pick a bunch of herbs to add to it, and we can head over to the forest garden to harvest some fruit.
Dreamy, breezy, we go. Easy, easy.
Between our backyard and our food forest here, we have 9 different apple varieties. most of them we have already harvested. However, there are still some on this one, a variety which is called Eggplant. And while most of our apples are heirloom varieties, this one is actually a modern variety that was bred in the Netherlands. It has very good taste. It has the Cox orange pippin as one of its bit remote ancestors, but that's one of the most aromatic apples, so there's some of that in this apple too. And it is a very healthy variety with good disease resistance.
Hand in hand, building castles out of sand, reaching for the grand. As willows align, we lose track of time. Head up high, now we climb.
So that was the last of the Eggplant, but I have also picked a few of those apples. This is an heirloom German variety called Glockenapfel. It's supposed to be the best one for Apfelstrudel. Apfelstrudel? How do you say it in English? Apfelstrudel. And I'm thinking maybe I could make a video about how to make one, how to make the authentic Apfelstrudel with this one. But I would also like to make a video about making an apple pie with different varieties of heirloom apples. So let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in. We have even more pears than we have apples, and that's because when we bought this plot there was a huge pear tree that was planted probably decades ago. It must be decades ago. Can you see it? I think it's at least 6 or 7 meters. It's a standard variety, which means with the branches start at about 2 meters. And it gives us a massive harvest. The variety is called Conference, which is a very good, even though it's an old heirloom, it's still one of the most commercially grown varieties in the Netherlands, and it's really good. It has good disease resistance. But the trouble is we get so much fruit, and some of it, because it's unreachable, so that means it falls down, and we cannot store it, because once it's been damaged, obviously, and also it falls once it's very ripe, so it cannot be stored. So there's a lot of that I will be picking from the ground, and the nicer ones sort of I want to use to make something with. We gather the fallen fruits regularly, but you can see there's always a lot more coming. Many of these are still in very good shape, so I'll be using those to make apple pear chutney, which is one of our favorite chutneys. I will be drying some. I have an air dryer. Is it called an air dryer? Dry oven? Dry? What is it called? Dehydrator, that's the word. I'll be slicing some to dehydrate. And I am also thinking about making pearstroop, which is basically a cooked down pear juice, which you cook so long that it becomes syrupy, and it's in that state it's very well preserved, so that you can really it keeps without any additional like heating up or anything. It will keep for years. The only problem is that you really have to cook it for many hours to get it to the right consistency. Lastly, I want to pick some grapes, which we are growing up the sunniest part of our long pergola, where we grow different varieties of edibles. We have 5 different varieties of grapes. 3 of those plants are did you see the butterfly? They come for the fruit, for the ripe fruit. 3 of the varieties are fruiting, and when it comes to taste, probably our favorite is this one, which is called Muscat Bleu. I blanked out for a second. And as you can see, I put some of the bunches in paper bags to protect them from insects and from birds. But actually the damage done by birds is very slight this year. I don't know what the reason is. There are also not many wasps around, which some years it's worse than others. So I will first be picking the grapes that are unprotected, and we will enjoy those. The last thing I like to do when harvesting is pick a bunch of flowers, and the quintessential fall flower for me is Dahlia. So let's pick a small bunch of these beauties. This is a variety called Café au lait, and it's become pretty popular in the past few years. It starts kind of pinkish, like this one when it first opens, and then then the color goes into some Café au lait. It's a pretty descriptive name, I would say. Those are fully open, so they will not keep long in the vase, but they'll just bring me joy for a few days. So that's the harvesting done for today. I'll be quite busy cooking with the produce and preserving the fruit that we have picked. I would like to do some more cooking from the garden videos in the future, so let me know in the comments if that's something that you would enjoy. Let me also please know what kind of things you're harvesting from your gardens. I always like to hear what people are, what produce people are enjoying in different climates. And if you enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon. Happy gardening!